President Donald Trump has stated that North Korea has conducted a major nuclear test. He says their words and actions continue to be hostile and dangerous to the United States, whose British embassy is here in central London. Trump claims North Korea is a rogue nation, which has become a great threat and embarrassment to China, which he believes is trying to help, but with little success. Trump adds that the United States is considering stopping all trade with any country doing business with North Korea. However, China responded angrily to the US president's threats, objecting to the threat of sanctions when China was working hard to find a peaceful solution to the current Korean crisis. Russian officials added their concerns about the risk of a military escalation of the situation and called for restraint. At the same time, the UN Security Council convened another emergency meeting about North Korea after its most powerful nuclear test to date. Russia and China have both proposed ways to reduce tensions in the region. Meanwhile, the Japanese public experienced an air raid warning as Pyongyang launched a ballistic missile directly overhead the country. One proposal has been to ban North Korea's exports of coal, iron, lead and seafood products, together worth about a third of the country's $3 billion in exports last year. These measures would directly affect the citizens of that country, while North Korean labourers abroad could also be barred, leading to a further degree of austerity for the North Korean people. Why does the American president seem so totally opposed to a unified Korea? And is North Korea actually justified in seeking to defend itself with nuclear weapons against foreign aggression? Simple questions with important answers. Since 1948, the US has not stopped interfering in Korean affairs and went to war there in 1950. Do the public think Donald Trump's recent actions and words seek to provoke North Korea so the US can further interfere on the Korean peninsula? We asked that question of the public in Korea. Here's what they said.
I don't think so. President Trump says what he says to get profits, but I think he has different ideas inside.
I think so. I think Trump chooses a hard line because of domestic issues, to concentrate on his supporters.
What I think the US wants is to interfere with the Korean peninsula deeply. I feel the US expresses its hostility to North Korea in an indirect way.
Anyway, I understand that it's for national interests.
In my opinion, I think so. I feel it is interfering. I want the US to leave this problem for us in order to solve ourselves. US intervention in other states' issues is too much.
I think the USA intervenes to get its interests.
I think the USA does a trial of strength with North Korea while intervening. The USA responds to North Korea's provocation because the USA doesn't want to lose.
According to news, I think the USA should interfere. The USA interferes because Trump wants to interfere. I think North Korea makes situations in which the USA should interfere.
I think so, because the USA feels that North Korea is an existential threat. I think this is the reason the USA tries to interfere.
As you said, the USA has interfered in Korean affairs for a long time. It began from the 1953 San Francisco Peace Treaty after the World War II. South Korea could not participate in the San Francisco Peace Treaty because South Korea fought in a war at the Japan battle lines with its provisional government and its independence army. The reason South Koreans could not participate in San Francisco Peace Treaty is because a revolution occurred in China in 1949, which evoked a need to check the Chinese Communist Party. So, holding a hand with Japan and making a threat to North Korea as a reason for a structure check-in of China, we can see American policy on the Korean peninsula in terms of his policy of East Asia. Of course, the nature of American policy on Korean peninsula has changed with the beginning of trade with China, but USA keeps this policy so far. But I do not think Trump acts like this with understanding of this American policy as interfering in East Asia. Trump is making a great deal with North Korea now. This is maybe the biggest and most difficult deal in his life. Trump's negotiation strategy on North Korea, which has hydrogen bombs and ICBMs that can heat USA mainland, shows different appearances so far. I think this is Trump's words and strategy.
Trump values American interests more than its alliances, especially with an economic approach to security issues related to its allies. With the North Korean nuke threat it's facing, on the one hand, he sends a message of threatening the South Korea-USA alliance. On the other hand, he applies a policy highlighting American economic interests.
The Democratic Republic of North Korea has indicated it won't be intimidated by Donald Trump's threats or gestures. How does the South Korean public think this tension between the United States and North Korea will be settled? The Democratic Republic of North Korea has indicated it won't be intimidated by Donald Trump's threats or gestures. How does the South Korean public think this tension between the United States and North Korea will be settled?
I think reconciliation will be done after tension is escalated to the end.
I think one of them needs to make a concession, but North Korea cannot give up its nuke because it may collapse. Trump responds with force to secure his supporters. I think this will last for a while.
I feel uncomfortable with that tension at first. North Korea tries to threaten the US while ignoring South Korea. I think a kid behaves badly in front of an adult, and it is impossible to expect what the young will do. This is the same to Kim Jong-un.
I think the tension will last and will not end. If we can see the direction of policies Kim Jong-un's administration applies, it is always provocation. If there is no response from the US that Kim Jong-un wants, I think the tension will last.
There are many problems in causing this dispute. But it may be a North Korean struggle to secure its regime. And North Korea does that because there is no other choice. But multilateral effort is necessary to solve this problem. For example, I know there is a Chinese stance and an American stance. They serve their own national interests rather than helping Korea. I think South Korea needs to find a way to take its own national interests and escape from danger.
North Korea always becomes silent if there is economic support. I think North Korea wants economic support this time, rather than those critical words.
Tension will last until each of them gets what they want. But I think no one wants a war. I think President Trump is now calculating profits he can get. I do not know how this will end. I want them to solve this problem by taking in an appropriate time.
It is difficult to answer. There is no option South Korea can take. It is hard to know how it ends. We need to see. I think watching it is the only available option.
I think North Korea will lose. Because this is a worldwide issue, the USA can press North Korea easily by economic sanctions. I think North Korea will squirm.
I do not know its end, but I think this is serious. I think tension will be escalated.
First, this tension will last for a while. This is not an issue of one of them bending a knee, so this tension will last.
Current conflict is composed of North Korea's threat to the USA mainland by doing nuclear tests and launching ICBMs. And Trump put maximum pressure. I think Trump will apply this maximum pressure policy for a while. Sometimes, Trump said that putting pressure is to bring North Korea to talk. American strategists and ministers said that diplomatic method is first and military measure is a backup. Anyway, USA puts maximum pressure. North Korea are not going to talk as much as USA wants. I do not think pressure leads to talk directly. The current situation is power to power. USA and North Korea are driving cars heading towards each other. I think USA and North Korea will stop their cars right before they collide. The road still remains until they collide. USA and North Korea will drive a little bit more. Trump will apply stronger policy. North Korea will take action that almost heats up the critical point. I think the critical point is that North Korea launches an ICBM to the Pacific Ocean. North Korea will do that definitely. At that point, right before colliding, North Korea and the USA will see great compromise.
There is a very deep valley of mistrust between the USA and North Korea. There's a big difference in the stances they take for current affairs. Furthermore, each of their top leaders behaves in the front line where tension between the USA and North Korea is escalating. In this sense, the power-to-power phase will last to the end of this year. After North Korea launches a few ballistic missiles to the North or the South Pacific Ocean, North Korea will declare a moratorium of its nuke and missile test at the beginning of next year. Then I expect North Korea will try to change the phase to a talk phase.
Donald Trump seems totally opposed to any sort of unity or political convergence between North and South Korea. Why, in the Korean public's opinion, is this the case?
Because the interests of the Korean Peninsula and American interest is different, but the Korean Peninsula need to walk a different pace for its peace and economic interests.
When I hear elder people's voice, China does not want to leave North Korea and the US does not want to leave South Korea. They do not want unification of Korea because South and North Korea are states they can use. If there is no South and North Korea, I think Korea is unified, but other states do not want a unified Korea.
USA sells lots of military equipment to South Korea. Unified Korea will not buy such big volumes of weapons.
In my opinion, the US can sell more weapons when South Korea and North Korea are hostile in relation. There is a deal with China too. If Korea is unified, China may face the USA at its border. I think China does not want this. So both the US and China do not want Korea to be unified and instead seek their interests. This is the reason they want Korea to stay as it is currently and not unified.
My personal thought is that if two states get close and unified, then the unified Korea will have lots of power such as nuke. I think USA is afraid of that.
Whatever. North Korea is related to influential states like China and Russia, and South Korea is related to the US. I think those big power states are fighting over Korea.
I think a divided Korea is better for the USA to get profit than a unified Korea.
USA keeps supporting peaceful unification of divided Korea, but this is just words. Actually, I think USA thinks that managing this divided Korean peninsula is more profitable to them than the peacefully unified Korea. USA can enhance the USA-Japan-South Korea Triangle alliance because of North Korea's threat at the divided Korean peninsula. Enhancing USA-Japan-South Korea Triangle military alliances means that the USA can expand its influence on checking and containing China's threat to the USA. So, USA seeks its bigger national interest from managing divided Korean peninsula after 1948. This is American policy.
In a short perspective, the USA approaches South Korea as its ally. But in a wide angle, I think the USA tries to keep its Northeast Asia policy, especially as the containment of China. In this containment of China and its realignment policy, the USA uses the USA-Japan alliance, the USA-South Korea alliance, and the USA-Japan-South Korea cooperation to press China. China responds with its new G2 theory, but China knows it's difficult. So China makes North Korea its buffer, and makes the USA, Japan, South Korea versus China, Russia, North Korea the new Cold War structure. The USA provides support and cooperation to its allies, but after escalating tensions in the Korean Peninsula. First, the American military-industrial complex sells weapons. Second, the USA earns profit from finance. Third, the USA wields its influence by the use of energy. It's a well-known fact that this phenomenon has lasted on the Korean Peninsula over half a decade.
China, as North Korea's closest ally and commercial partner, has bought about $2.3 billion worth of the country's exports and provides about $3 billion worth of its imports. Meanwhile, American trade to China totals about $170 billion, and imports from China to America total $480 billion. This means that Chinese net exports to America are worth over 51,000% more than its net exports to North Korea, making China mindful of its relations with Washington. Maybe this is why China has agreed to imposing trade sanctions on North Korea. Some argue North Korea's investment in nuclear weapons is actually an intelligent approach to defense because countries don't attack other nuclear-armed countries. What does the Korean public think about this approach to defense?
I think it is wrong because it goes towards a direction that is different from the world. I cannot understand why Kim Jong-un does what he does.
From the North Korean perspective, there is no option Kim Jong-un can choose. But South Korea cannot make weapons like North Korea because of many sanctions. I think North Korea is proud of that. It seems that North Korea thinks they can do whatever they want with that, but I think it does not work.
I think it is not a good choice, but from a North Korean perspective, I think this is the best choice for North Korea, because North Korea is a communist state. A very last one. South Korea tries to unify, and there is pressure from all around. Force is the best to endure in such pressure.
I think it's not the right choice, but I think this is the North Korean style. But from the South Korean perspective, I do not think that it is right.
It's wrong, it's not right. But there is a point I can understand. North Korea has no other method. They can threaten the USA with the nukes they have. I think North Korea knows that this is an option they can choose. I think North Korea does this gesture to say, understand me.
In my opinion, North Korea is making a mistake. I want this issue to go away quietly. But North Korea is making trouble. I feel North Korea acts badly in front of the US.
I think this is the only way North Korea can survive.
I think this is not the right choice. It may be a method, but I do not think it's right.
It is wrong. I think it is wrong that North Korea defends itself from the USA in that way. I think North Korea makes nukes to show its power to target the USA.
It's hard to say it's right or wrong because the regime itself is wrong. But from a North Korean perspective, I think it's the best choice they can make. Because North Korea thinks they should do that to survive. I think it's the best option North Korea can choose.
North Korea uses MAD strategy. That means defend the threat from the USA by nuke. But in that MAD strategy, USA has 5,000 to 6,000 nuke warheads, but North Korea only has 5 to 6 of them. North Korea may have 20 to 30 of them within 10 years. Some expect 100 of them. Then, it's impossible to compare how many nuke warheads USA and North Korea has. So, this is called minimum nuke deterrence strategy. That means making a balance with an opponent who has many nuke warheads by having a smaller number of nuke warheads. North Korea applies this minimum nuke deterrence strategy now. And the intention North Korea has with this minimum nuke deterrence strategy is to change opponent's strategy in order to achieve his goal. This is called coercive diplomacy. North Korea applies this coercive diplomacy. It means North Korea tries to lose one and gets two. The loss is isolation from the international society and being sanctioned by the UN. But ultimately, changing American hostile policies on North Korea by cooperation with the USA through the coercive diplomacy. North Korea intends to earn this. North Korea applies minimum nuke deterrence strategy and MAD strategy now to lose one to get two.
From the North Korean perspective, nukes as a means of securing Kim Jong-un's regime and of making a deal with the USA as an equal nuke state status is the same story. In other words, normalization of the USA-North Korean relations are conditions in which Kim Jong-un's regime can survive. Nukes also means that North Korea can participate with negotiations with the United States as equals, because it secures its regime. I think the meaning of nukes has for North Korea as a method to secure its regime and an initiative in negotiation with the USA cannot be separated.
It seems Washington is again dictating terms and conditions for the UN Security Council's approach to North Korea. We asked the Korean public why the US has so much influence over how other states treat North Korea.
I don't know what President Trump thinks, but my opinion is that President Trump causes a dispute and presses other states to seek American economic interest as he argues America first in his presidential election campaign.
China and the US are facing each other in world diplomacy today. China enhances its power so much, so I think the US tries to keep its position and press China.
It would be changed by the character of each president. Unless China and Russia give up North Korea, I think the US alone cannot make something happen.
I do not know. I do not think about that. The US is the biggest state in the world, so it is right that the US has attention to every state. The US pays more attention to here because Korea is divided. Also, the US holds this attitude because North Korea is provocative.
In my opinion, the USA declares that the USA is the policeman of the world. Of course, the USA protects the world system and secures world peace. But the USA puts more weight on its national interests and the interests of those in power in the United States. I think this is the same when it comes to South Korea.
In my opinion, the reason the US argues about South Korea is to stand with hostility to China and other big states, and South Korea is a method to express its mind.
USA does what it says and behaves to show that USA is the strongest. I think this is the reason.
I think because the USA can get fame as a police state and earn dignity and trust from the international community. I think this is the reason the USA intervenes in international affairs.
Eventually, the Cold War system that lasted after World War II and the important axis that upheld this system is nuke and dollar. So, for example, USA have a full control of the order among nuke states other than 5 nuke states in NPT. They are India, Pakistan and Israel. All 3 of them earned their nuke state status from USA because USA developed the nuke first and used it first. It has a big power in terms of nuke. USA also leads the world economic order with its dollar. Someone says its value dropped though, so USA leads world order with its nuke and dollar. The power that the USA can put sanctions on North Korea by the UN is based on this power. I think these are proofs of expanding American influence.
After the Korean War in the 1950s, the USA kept pressing North Korea by putting sanctions on communist states, anti-religion states, anti-human rights states, and on states with weapons of mass destruction over the past 67 years. Now there is no framework to talk between the USA and North Korea. There is almost no trade between them too. Because there must be limitations if the USA puts sanctions on North Korea alone when North Korea breaks the international rule. So the USA thinks it should press China and Russia and other North Korea-friendly states to make the sanctions influential. So the USA puts its own sanctions and highlights secondary boycotts that needs international cooperation to press North Korea.
A collapse in the trade relationship between China and the US would have devastating consequences for both countries, as well as for the international community. By contrast, China's trade with North Korea is a tiny proportion of China's economic activity. Many have called on the US to stop interfering and leave North Korea alone. But Washington seems uninterested in fixing the Korean crisis and has actually appeared to provoke the situation. And now China stays notably quiet and has even agreed to trade sanctions. Perhaps Beijing has calculated the value of trade with America exceeds the benefit of defending Pyongyang. However, others warn that the cost of a nuclear confrontation provoked by American war games could be beyond calculation.